We're recording the interview of Carl Gill. This interview is being conducted by Erica Carter from the Wright State University Veterans Voices Project. This interview is being recorded at Wright State University in the New Media Incubator. It is 3:10 p.m. on December 4th, 2018. How are you?
I'm good.
Thank you so much for coming today. Where and when were you born?
I was born in Canton, Ohio, September 25th, 1947.
Who were your parents and what were their occupations?
My mother was a housewife. My dad was a farmer by trade, and then got into a little bit of real estate in the beginning. But then he got into, then joined the Navy. And it was the Navy, World War II, within the South Pacific.
Okay. We're going to ask a few more questions
Sure.
about that in just a second. Who were your siblings and did they serve, if you have any?
I have four other siblings. I had two older sisters, Sandy and Carol, and a younger sister, Susie, and a younger brother, Earl. And none of them served in the military but myself.
So what was your motivation for joining the military?
Interesting. Back in the 60s, the war was on, the Vietnam War was on. Wanted to make something of my life, didn't know what I wanted to do. I went to Kent State University for 2 years, floundering, thinking, I don't know what I want to do when I grow up. And I just figured if I joined something a little more directive, give me direction, a little more disciplined. I mean, I wasn't a bad kid. I mean, just a normal high school kid and college kid trying to find himself. I figured it'd be a great opportunity to find myself in the military. So I decided to join the military.
How'd your parents feel about that?
Well, my father died when I was 8 years old.
I'm so sorry.
And so my mom was not real happy. She likes the military, very pro-military, very supportive of the military because my dad and other aunts and uncles were in the military. But with the Vietnam War going on, she was a little concerned. But I just joined, and I didn't know which branch I was going to join. I visited all of them. It was funny because when I was younger, I always loved the Marine uniform. Every kid loves the United States Marine Corps because most of the movies are made about the Marines on TV, John Wayne and the gang. But I grew up and learned more what they do, you know, what their primary target, their primary goal is. Then I thought about the Navy because my dad was in the Navy, and I figured, well, that's probably where I'll go. Then I looked at the Air Force, and I realized every Air Force base is near a major city, and every major city has a college, because my ultimate goal was to get a college degree. So I joined the Air Force, figured if I'd be out at sea in the Navy, that would interfere with me getting a degree. So that's why I joined the Air Force.
And how old were you when you did that?
I was probably 20.
So a little older than some of the other recruits?
Yeah, a little older. Yeah, 2 years of college under my belt and trying to figure out what I wanted to do.
Can you tell me about basic training?
Yes, basic training. Well, I was pretty much, I was a jogger. I was a runner all my life. Even in the 8th grade, I'd run. You know, jogging became something everybody does now. But I did it just to part of that I think was because my father passed away. I just needed an outlet, so I'd run just to clear my mind. So when I went in the Air Force, I was in pretty good shape. I was running 8 miles a day. I took a part-time job at a meatpacking plant, and I was carrying sides of beef loading on trucks. So I went in, I was in great shape. And so boot camp was really nothing. Actually, I did less exercise in the first couple weeks in boot camp than I did when I was out. Yeah, but then you had to memorize, the memorization, things they make you memorize. And of course, you're locked into nothing else to do but to do what they tell you to do for 8 weeks. And so I did okay. I ended up being I remember the first week I was there, they needed what do they call, I think it was a fireman to, if there's a fire, to make sure all the windows are shut in the barracks. And we had the old World War II barracks at Lackland. I didn't have the newer ones. They were building the new ones when I was there. So we had the old World War II barracks. So the job was, everybody ran out and they had fire drill. I had to make sure all the windows were shut and report to the DI when I accomplished my mission. And then during inspections, every week I had no deficiencies, so all of a sudden they made me a squad leader. So I was over 10. So about 2-3 weeks into boot camp, we had our major inspection, our first major inspection, and everybody got dinged except my squad. We were perfect. And so they fired, the DI fired the dorm chief and promoted me to dorm chief. And then we were good after that. We did everything good. Next inspection, we got one demerit, and that was because our DI stapled something on the bulletin board rather than using a pin. So it wasn't ours, the team's, it was his. So it went well, real well. So I did good in boot camp. I did real good in boot camp.
Do you remember any of your colleagues there, or any of your other airmen?
You know, it's funny. I don't. I know some of their names. I lost contact with them, except for one guy. His name was Abe Braverman. Abe was of the Jewish faith, great guy. He was as skinny as a pencil. And we joined together, not as a part of, he came from Philly and I came from out of the Cleveland recruitment. And so we just met up at boot camp together. And he was so skinny for the first week, he was with us and they held him, they took him out and put weight on him. So I lost contact with him because we continued and graduated. He was 2 weeks, 3 weeks behind. He had to gain 10 pounds. So I ended up getting out of boot camp and then going to Lowry Air Force Base in Denver. And he had the same job I had, and I'm going through, and he came in about 3 weeks after I did. So we followed each other about a month behind. I went there, then I went to Grand Forks, North Dakota.
Hold on. Let's talk about
going
to Denver. How did you get there? Why were you there? What job did you do?
Well, I was...
training, right?
Training, yeah. My MSO, it was supply. And back in the day, it was interesting because I love photography. And so when I enlisted, they said, your grades, your scores are high, what do you want to do? I said, I want to be a photographer. And my DI said, the recruiter said, not a problem. So of course when I get there, and of course that was at the height of the Vietnam War, and there were 8 million men and women that were serving during that time.
8 million?
8 million.
Okay.
3 million in country and 8 million support. And I thought, I got it. I'm going to do what I want to do. Well, when I get there, what was left? Supply. So when I remember I got my orders to go to Lowry Air Force Base for my training, they said, you're in supply. So I wasn't promised that. And of course, the DI laughed. Nowadays it's a different story. If you don't get what you want, you can get out. But back then you couldn't get out, you're in. So I went there for training. And I was there for, I think, 12 weeks.
That's a long training.
Yeah, it is.
For supply.
Yeah. Well, when I first got there, the first 2 weeks, it was a backlog. So I went from boot camp, thinking, all right, I'm going to go into my training, be more relaxing. Well, they put you in a barracks, a squad, where you're pretty much back in boot camp again. Lights out at 9 o'clock, up at 7, marching to breakfast. You come back, inspections. It was, I think, this can't happen again. Here we go, 2 more weeks. But after that, I went into my regular dorm room, and it was a lot different than the studying. But Abe was probably about 3 weeks to a month behind me everywhere I went. So I was there, and I trained and passed that class, and then I got my orders to go to Grand Forks, North Dakota.
Okay. In
the snow country. It was a SAC base, Strategic Air Command. And I was there, and I was there for 1 winter, which was good enough for me. But ironically, Abe showed up a month after I was there.
Was it colder than in Dayton, Ohio, where you are now, or where you were from?
It was terribly cold.
It was terribly cold. Just bone chilling?
It was, yeah, because you're up near Canada, and they used to call it the hawk. The wind would blow in out of Canada. And it was just terrible. I mean, it was literally terrible. You know, you got with the wind chill factor, 75 below, you know, and of course all the married men got to leave the base to go home, and us single guys had to hang out, man the fort, so to speak, and then the parkers, the bunny boots, and the layers of clothing, and the hoods with the fur around it, so you wouldn't get blinded and wouldn't get, you know, frostbite. It was cold. It was just miserably cold. And of course the snow would drift. You're just up against the barracks, the concrete barracks. But, you know, we did what we had to do. That's all there was to it. Okay.
How long did you sign up for in your first contract or your original contract?
It was a 4-year commitment.
4-year commitment. And so you're at Denver, and so you're about going on just a year in?
Well, no, Denver was,
Well, 6 months.
yeah, at the most, yeah.
Okay, so somewhere in the 6-month range. And you were only there for a year?
No, 8 weeks.
8 weeks?
8 weeks of training. 12 weeks of training, I'm sorry, 12 weeks of training.
No. How long were you in Denver? I'm sorry.
12 weeks. So I went from boot camp.
Oh, Denver was training.
Uh-huh.
Okay, and then where'd you go after Denver?
Grand Forks, North Dakota.
Okay.
The SAC base. And I was there for one winter. And that's where it's the nasty, the cold.
Okay.
Yes.
I was calling Dakota Denver. I'm sorry about that.
That's okay.
It's all cold to me.
It was cold.
I don't want to go
Denver
to
was nice because I was there in the summer.
Oh, okay.
You know, and it wasn't cold at all. It was beautiful. It was beautiful. People there were very friendly, by the way. Except for one thing they used to do to allow the military guys you'd be walking downtown and people would drive by and you hear this, they go ping, 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 ping. And you're like, what are they doing? This is ridiculous. Well, being new there, I didn't know, but that's our hair growing. Our hair was growing out. So they were making that noise. It was just kind of funny. But so that's how they picked on, they knew we were recruits because our hair was no hair and that type of thing. Plus back in the 60s, everybody had long hair. Mm-hmm. So they did pick on us. But I had an opportunity, I was downtown just on the weekends, and people walk up, shake our hands, and a couple of people gave us tickets to the Denver Bronx game. Just out of the clear blue, hey, you guys are in the military, I'm not going to the game this weekend, you take my tickets. People were very nice.
During Vietnam?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So there were nice people. There's some nice people out there.
Okay. Had you traveled a lot before joining the military? Because at this point you've been to like 3 different...
Yeah, no. But my sister lived in California, and I think it was my senior year in high school. I flew out there and spent a couple of weeks with her, and then my brother went with me, and he bought her car. We drove it back, which was a real kind of a fun thing. Okay. But no, not hardly any traveling whatsoever, never. So the idea of to me it was an adventure. You know, I'm in 2 places now. I'm in Texas, and I was in Denver. Then I went to Grand Forks, North Dakota, and it was just cold. Okay. I mean, it was just cold.
How long were you there?
Just a year.
Just a year.
Just a year.
So that sounds kind of foreign to me because most duty stations are longer than that. So where did you go after that?
Vietnam.
Okay, so that's why it was
frigid cold weather to the jungles of Vietnam.
Did you volunteer for that, or were you put on orders?
I've never told this to anybody, so this is a flash. This is the first time. I was torn between the Vietnam conflict, right, wrong, and I had friends back home that were against it and what have you. And I'm a very inquisitive guy that wants to find out what's really true. And then a friend of mine's dad told me. He always told us, he said, and of course, I remember I was young, stupid, type of. He said, if you find a girlfriend and you want to get married, go someplace where she can't get you. Take off. Go for a drive. Disappear for 6 months. And you come back, if she still wants you, then she's the right girl. We were teenagers when he said that, and he was just trying to guide us to make sure we don't make silly mistakes. So part of my decision was, well, I was going to get engaged, I thought. And the other, I really wanted to find out about what was going on so I can be honest with my own feelings. So I volunteered.
Okay.
I volunteered and went to Vietnam.
Okay. So Let's get into the details of that.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, let's back up just a little bit. Are there any funny or interesting stories that you'd like to share about your first duty station?
Which is Grand Forks. Yeah, Grand Forks, it was cold, and so I'm an early riser. So I'd get up early for everybody and get a shower and get dressed. Then I'd always crack the window by the shower doors. And it was 70 below zero, 10 below whatever. And of course, they guys come in and you hear them yelling and screaming, those type of things. We used to, a couple times they would, especially after hours, we get the heavy snow drifts, and they would look for volunteers to go out and shovel the lights around the landing areas because of the B-52s. And so they would come in the barracks on Friday nights or Saturdays and look for guys who were off duty. Well, we'd hide in our lockers, those type of things. So it just, that's what we did. So other than that, it was a pretty typical, played sports. I played, we played flag football at the base, different things they still do today, but nothing really crazy.
Can you tell me about your job? Like on a normal day, you would get up, shower, dress, change, show up in uniform. Did you do PT first thing in the morning as a group, or
no?
were you
We're
running
Air
on
Force.
your? I have to ask these
We're Air
things.
Force.
I need clarification.
No, my job was really, I worked with a big computer. It was called the 1050-2 computer, and it was air conditioned, and would get to work, and people would order stuff, and I would get the paperwork, and we didn't have laptops. They would come in with paper, and I'd look at it, and then I'd go to this huge wall with all these volumes and look up, and then I would put it on a little card and color in the color codes, the cards, the numbers, drop it in a little machine, it would go up, and it would be key punched. So these cards, they'd come back, I'd double check, and then we'd order supplies. It was an incredible job. It was boring, but something I had to do for the next, I figured the rest of my life, rest 4 years anyhow. And that's what I did. So it was nothing exciting and nothing 8 to 5, went to lunch, came back, 5 o'clock. That was it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so orders come down from Vietnam.
Mm-hmm. And my brother-in-law just got back. He was there. He left in December of '68, so he just missed the Tet Offensive, which happened in January, that first year. So he was home, so I got the orders, and I called him first, because my next call was to my mom, and to tell her that I was coming home, so she would be excited, but where I was headed. So I called him, and I gave him about a half hour to get over there. Then I called, and of course, first thing I said, I'm coming home for 30 days. She was all excited about that. And then I told her where I was headed, and it was pretty emotional. But it all worked out. I went home, and it was in July, I think it was, I went over to Vietnam. And we had picnics and, the typical summer in Ohio.
And what about this girlfriend?
We broke up.
Even before you got to?
No, after I got over there, I'm one of the Dear John guys.
Okay.
A couple guys got there, I got one. I got over there in July and got it in September or October, something like that. No big deal. Inside, I knew it was going to happen.
Okay.
So it was just one of those deals.
How did you get over there to Vietnam? Did you fly?
Flew, yeah. Left Canton, Ohio. I flew to San Francisco. Got to San Francisco, and we went through some training there for a couple weeks, and then we had some combat training. We shot every weapon you can think of, and threw the grenades, and did everything, and then ended up back in the barracks, and kind of waited. And 2 days later, we were hopping an airplane. I can't remember. It was a commercial flight. I can't remember which airline it was, but I think we flew from Travis or San Francisco, because we're in Travis Air Force Base, and drove down to San Francisco Airport, and then we flew to Alaska, and got in there. I don't know, in the wee hours of the morning, and never went outside, and then flew there to Vietnam. And as we were flying in, I just remember flying in, and everybody's not real talkative, because you're sitting in the airplane together, a little small talk, where you're from, and finally the pilot gets on the phone. He goes, ladies and gentlemen, we have now entered the airspace of the South Vietnam. And so we got real quiet. We started looking out the windows. We're coming into Saigon, is where we landed. I remember looking out the window. You see these big old holes in the ground, and it's like, oh my gosh, here we are. We're landing. We're in here. We're home. We're here for a year. And there were different, there are Army, there were different branches on this aircraft. And so when we landed, I'll never forget, I was in the back of the aircraft. And as we landed, you saw the ladder come up, and you looked out the window, you saw a bunch of trucks and all military activity down there. And you saw 4 or 5 different branches, service guys come up the ladder, and they opened the door and came in, and you're kind of looking like this, see what's going on. And all of a sudden, you're watching, all of a sudden, it was like a wave. Guys were sitting there, heads were bouncing back. Boom, boom, boom. And we're all like, wow, all of a sudden it hit me. It was the air, the humidity, the mixture, the smells, and it just kind of threw you back. And then you just started to sweat because of the humidity. And so they told us as we get off, Air Force to the left, Army straight, yeah, just told us straight where to go. So we come off the aircraft, and our duffel bags were there. We grabbed our bags, and I hopped in a blue truck, and guys hopped in brown trucks, and off we went. Who knows where those guys went, and they didn't know where I went.
Okay, you said the pilot said ladies and gentlemen. Were there ladies on that flight?
There were women on there was women, yeah.
And what do you know what their jobs might have been?
They're
Nurses and things?
Probably nurses. Most were nurses back in the day, yeah.
Okay. Oh.
Yeah, most were nurses. They're probably, I remember seeing 2 or 3, but you know, it's mostly men. Yeah, mostly men.
Okay.
No mechanics back then.
Okay.
Female mechanics, that is.
I'm a mechanic, so that's why he's saying that. Okay, so you get off at Saigon.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you go next?
We went to an orientation briefing, and they went in and they give us everything you need to know about the locals, what to do, what not to do, you know, all the things that you receive. That they want to keep you healthy, so they tell you everything. And then they assign you to your duty station. And I went to the supply squadron, and so there's about 8 of us that went, and they put us in a blue truck, an Air Force truck, and they drop us off at different locations around the base. And
what base?
Saigon, Tatsu Air Force Base.
Okay.
In Saigon. And so at Tatsu, we get off the truck, grab our duffel bags, we go inside. There's the orderly sitting there, and we give him our little brown envelopes, and he's going through it, and we're sitting there, and he's on the phone, and I remember he said, "Yeah, we can do that. Don't worry about it," you know. And he hung up. So 8 of us are sitting there, and he lines us up. He said, "I want you guys all line up." So I all stood up, and landed shoulder to shoulder, and he said, "Count off by 3s. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3." And then he goes, "Okay, 2s, have a seat over here. The rest of you guys go over there." So I was one of the 2 when I sat over here. And then some more guys came in, they did the same thing, and then that was it. And the guys over there went with one other guy, and he looked at us, he goes, "You guys are going to go someplace else, temporary duty, TDY." So we're like, all right, we had no idea what was going on. So we then had some additional training, combat training, and then I was with our group, we were deployed to take supplies out into the field. And by truck, helicopter, we did it by boat. And you just know where you're going to go. Sometimes we'd fly in Da Nang, and then we would be charged to take supplies someplace. And we'd go there, we would unload, the chopper would leave, we would camouflage it. We usually had some Marines, or we had the Army, or sometimes we had the South Korean ROKs. Some of those would be our security. And then we would then booby-trap the supplies. But before we did that, we would radio, because we were dropping off for someone. And what we'd do, we would get a call. We would say Santa Claus has arrived, or we would come up with some code that they knew that we were there, and they would say, "We're looking forward to do some shopping," which means they're on their way. And then we'd take off and go to another pickup landing zone, and they would pick us up there. Because with the helicopter landing, of course, that would draw attention, and if the enemy was there, the con was there, they would obviously find out what's going on. Or they would say, "Not this time, we'll pick it up in January," or you know, "Easter Bunny's not coming today," or whatever the code was, which means it was a hot area. Then we'd booby trap, and then we'd take off. And then we'd have a pickup point somewhere else. Could be a day down the road, you know, it could be 12 hours, who knows. But we'd take off, and we'd get a certain distance away, and all of a sudden you hear a big explosion. And you know that they were trying to take the supplies and got caught, and so we did our job and got picked up and went back to a primary base and ended up doing something else.
Okay, what rank were you?
I went over there as an airman second class, two-stripe, and about midway through I became a sergeant. That's what they called sergeants back then. They're called something else now.
So E3?
E3.
Okay.
Yeah,
That
E3.
was a sergeant at E3?
Yeah, we had 3 stripes with sergeant.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so I did that for 9 months, different places and different.
The TDY?
The TDY for 9 months, and then the last 3 months, I went back to the base where I originally signed, and it was called the War Readiness Risk Kits, and it was they were probably 50 kits. They're like big lockers. You know, they're about this wide and about 8 feet tall, and 8 of those related to a particular aircraft. If that aircraft was shot down or need maintenance, they would pick that kit up and take it to the airline, to the base, and they would then use all the screws, bolts, nuts, everything to get it back operational. So that 3 months, it was always, all you did was inventory to make sure everything was there, and then if something was shipped out and they brought it back, you have to restock it and make sure everything was in supply, ready to go. So I did that for 3 months. It was 12-hour days, 6 days a week, and you had 1 day off.
What'd you do on your day off?
Either slept, did volunteer at a small little orphanage. I just thought about, yeah, I have a picture of a little orphan girl that was kind of a cool, the Catholic priest would come and, you know, of course you always got religion in a war zone. So usually I'd try to go to church, and then the priest was asking for volunteers. So I went out there the last 3 months, 3 or 4 times to help, and we'd just play with the kids, or we'd work in the kitchen, just do odds and ends, do repairs, this type of thing. Yeah, just something that you gave back. Yeah, and there's a lot of guys that did that, more than a lot of people think. So
that's good to
yeah.
know. Thank you.
Yeah.
So on your travel team, this was a specific one, you know, you guys all had twos, you guys were always together?
Sometimes. There was a number of different people, depending on where we're headed, what was going on, what was happening. It was a combination. There were a couple Army guys, not too many. Mostly it was Air Force and some Navy, but mostly Air Force, because the Army, you guys, they're out there walking the line out there. So we did a lot of that stuff, took supplies out. In fact, when I came back to Florida, when I got out, I was working for the YMCA and got a job with them, and I was interviewing with one of the leadership guys there, and we were talking. He goes, "Oh, I saw you in Vietnam." I said, "Yeah, I was there in 70, 71, and he was too." And he goes, "What did you do?" Ironically, we start talking, and I told him what I did. He goes, "I think you supplied me once," because it happened to him. He came up, and there were supplies. He had no idea where it came from. So here it is. You know, a number of years later, I find somebody I could have, you know, gave him supplies to finish his mission. Yeah, it's kind of a neat thing.
Did you build any relationships while you were TDY?
Some, but I've lost contact with those guys. I just, when you come back, you end up flying into San Francisco, and
everybody goes their separate ways.
you're gone, and that's about it. Yeah.
Okay. I still would like to know about some of the guys or some of the relationships you might have had, or what a relationship would have consisted of.
Well, a relationship really is, you get letters from home. How's your wife, girlfriend? Guys got Dear John letters. You know, you talk to them and, you know, discuss things. You get drunk with them, and you know, you do those things that any soldier normally does on their time off. And a lot of times the guys get scared. You know, things happen. You go under fire. People get scared, and you talk to the guys that come in later who don't have the experience. You just calm them down a little bit, get them focused, and what people did with me, get you focused, and just hopefully you get to go home.
So you still have that kind of leadership role?
Yeah, I think every soldier has that. Yeah, I think that's because you know what needs to be done, and that's the purpose of the mission, and to make sure you get through. And the mission is everybody. You're there for them. You're not there for, you know, the war's the war, but you want to get everybody home.
Did you actually going there change your opinion? You started out, you volunteered. Did it change? Did it fulfill what you were thinking? Did your thoughts change on it? How did you feel?
You know, I don't know if anything changed or did I really want to understand it, I guess. And you know, I saw what happened in a lot of the villages we went to or were through. And there's some things that, war sucks. We shouldn't even have it. But there were some things there that shouldn't have happened, that the Viet Cong or the North Vietnamese military did things to some of our guys that was just ridiculous. They're pretty mean people. And obviously it turned some of our guys just in the same way. And it was a real battle to survive and get out of there. Should we have been in there? The domino effect. They always talked about, well, we did get out and the domino effect did happen. So could we have won it? I think we could have. I think after the Tet Offensive, we came back and they were on the run. But I just think the negativity in the United States, the pressure politically, they had to get out. So we'll never know the real answer, and I'm not there to judge if it was right or wrong, or if we could have won it and didn't win it. We lost a lot of friends over there. A lot of people were killed. So we just got to make sure that, I guess, I have no problem talking to anybody about a war or a situation, but I have a real problem talking to people who've never experienced it, because they just don't know what it's like. So it's just, we'll never know till we're judged.
Okay. Okay. When you came back, your year is finished. How were you greeted then? Was it the same hugs and kisses?
No. Actually, it was probably about 8 months or maybe 6 months into my tour. My grandfather passed away. For some reason, I got to go home. And I think because I didn't have a father, that I lived with my grandfather while my mom was getting situated. And I told the Red Cross guy that. It was kind of funny. He goes, "You're going home." So when I flew home that time, I was in uniform, and I was with 3 other guys who were coming back, and we ended up flying out San Francisco to Chicago, and then Chicago to different parts. And they told us to stay together. And we got spit on and yelled at, and one of the guys went into the restroom by himself, and so we all said, "All right, well, we'll wait out here for you." And he went in, and he was in there for a long time, and we went in there, and he was accosted, got jumped on by a couple guys, but we took care of them and got out of there and got him out and got him cleaned up, and we all went our separate directions. Now, those guys I didn't serve with. Mm-hmm. It was just, we're all together, they say stay together, and it was just uncalled for, some of the stuff. And then I went home for the funeral, and I was there about 20 days. Oh. And yeah, it was kind of a break in the action, at home. Then I went back to finish out my tour.
Okay, okay. What year was it? You said 71?
71.
When you
came back in the summer of 71.
And what, did you go to a base? What happened next?
Well, after I got out, or came back to Vietnam, my brother flew out again and met me out in California. And we took 3 weeks, he and I, and I had a cousin. And we, the three of us, we just had a good time driving back cross country. Took about 2.5 weeks to get home, and we stopped in Grand Canyon. Just had a great time with my brother. And he was still in high school then, so it was kind of fun. And then spent about a week and a half at home, and then ended up getting assigned to McCoy Air Force Base in Orlando, Florida. Yeah.
That's not too shabby.
Well, it's interesting. When I got my orders in Vietnam, I said, "Where's Orlando, Florida?" Well, this is 71. Mickey Mouse was being built.
Okay.
All right. And somebody goes, "I don't know, a guy just came in from Orlando. Check it out." So I went over. I said, "What's the baby?" He goes, "You're going to heaven." That's what he said. So I get down there, and we drove down. I had a Volkswagen Bug. Popped the top down, and my buddy Abe, he got home after I did, and he didn't take his whole vacation time, so he called me up and he flew to Canton, and he and I drove down together because he was going to McCoy Air Force Base. We followed each other. He ended up going to Vietnam to Da Nang. Mm-hmm. I didn't bring that up. He went to Da Nang. But so anyway, we drove down there and just went to work and bide my time. And I was going to stay in, but I think because of what happened in Chicago and the Vietnam conflict, I wanted to get out. But I did finish my college education in Florida.
Okay. Just a quick question. You ran over a lot of stuff in that
I know.
statement. How much longer did you have on your contract? About a year?
Yeah, about a year. Yeah, a little bit about a year. But I got my degree, and then I had a job offer to work for the YMCA as a physical director.
You got your degree while you were still in or after?
No, I was still in it. While I was at McCoy, I finished up.
Okay.
I even my last 3 months in Vietnam, I took a class from, it was called the University of Maryland Far East Division. I took an English class. It was kind of funny. And then when I got to McCoy, I signed up at a school called Florida Southern, which is in Lakeland, and I finished up my degree there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had a question or two about your going back to the military before we jump out. So you said that you had like 2 weeks worth of training firing all the weapons and stuff. Now in the Air Force, you guys don't necessarily do a lot of that. How did that feel? What was that like? Was it exciting? Or?
Well, yeah, it was, because I was a hunter. I hunted back in Ohio, I hunted, and so to shoot the weapon, it was fun, because you just don't know. You got the 45, the M16, the M60 machine gun, and throwing those grenades at those cars, and just having a good time. So a lot of they were the booby traps. They did all those type of things we were shared with. So I felt comfortable because I didn't know the reality of it and then when I got over there, they gave us an additional 2 weeks of additional training. We had guard duty around the post with MPs. Mm-hmm. We went out in the jungle near Saigon or Tan Son Nhut, spent maybe 5 days out there or 3 days, just getting used to the humidity and the bugs, and because we're going to be going out, and just being prepared to what's going to happen to us. And that was a reality. I mean, that's when you had a 45 in your hip and an M16, and all of a sudden now you're a professional killer, and your job is to do what you got to do. So I remember our first mission, we were going out, and this sergeant was sitting next to me, and I'm riding shotgun, and I said, well, how often do you get attacked? Did you get attacked? He goes, Gill, how do you stop an army? You cut off their supplies, you idiot. I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. So these are things you just don't, as an innocent guy that you had no idea, So it was, we had some hairy times, but everybody survived and we got out of there.
Okay. So going forward, when you got to Orlando, Florida, what was your job there? Were you back with the air-conditioned machine?
No, I was at the front of the base. I was in procurement. I dealt with suppliers in the community. We would buy food supplies, whatever we needed that to feed the base. Eggs, bacon, all that stuff. That's my job. It was just pick the phone. I need more eggs, or whatever we had to do. And then they would come in. I would check the orders, and it was an easy job. It was it was boring, actually.
Did you make any friends there, or
yeah, made a lot of friends. In fact, we were sergeants. We live off base now, so three of us guys got an apartment, which was unique because there were no apartments in Orlando at the time. Orlando was a sleepy little town, and the apartment was probably 10 miles from the base, which on the side of town, maybe even farther than that. And it was a brand new apartment complex. We got in, and we stayed there for about a year, and then I got out in different directions, but yeah, I was funny because I'm moving now, and I found some pictures, and there's these guys, I can't remember their names. I just have no idea where they're at, what they're doing now. Okay. Yeah, yeah.
So, did you finally get an exciting job after you?
Well, I did a couple things. I worked for the YMCA for a number of years, and I really wanted to do something else. Then I got into healthcare, and I got into home care in Florida. Did that for a number of years, and then long-term care. I moved up and became a regional director for a long-term care company, and really got into the depth of healthcare. Then I had a good opportunity to get into hospice, and I did hospice in Florida for about 10 years, and then I got a very good job offer here in Ohio at Ohio Hospice, and I did a number of different things there, and then they came to me about 2 years ago, and they said, we have a veterans program where we pin all veterans at end of life. We honor their service, and it's just sort of an after-fact type thing. And they said, since you're a veteran, maybe you can look at it and put some teeth to it. So I redid the whole program. And we have about 60 volunteers here in Dayton. They're all veterans who go out and pin those men and women who served in the military before they die. We want to honor them again for their service. And then we're doing some educational programs for nursing homes and assisted living to teach them how to be veteran-centric. So the focal point is to honor the men and women who served before they pass, and then to teach the caregivers how to care for veterans, because they're unique. They get PTSD, all different kinds of illnesses and hang-ups, and their stoic attitude on medicine. I usually do orientation. I say, let me ask you a question. You go and you see a patient every day or twice a week, and they have a very unique illness, and they're dying. And you know their pain threshold should be, on a 1 to 10 scale, a 9. But yet you go in there and you say to them, what's your pain threshold? And they say, oh, it's a 4. And you come and find out this person's a veteran. And as we all know, veterans, we have a pretty high stoic attitude and pain threshold, because the mission must be completed. And many veterans I'll talk to, they say, well, I don't need any special help. Give it to the guys and ladies that need it. So we are trained, good or bad, we're trained differently than other people. So that's something that they have to be aware of, that there's something in that man or woman's mind. They're having issues or concerns, but you got to get them to confess to you, and you got to treat them different than you do normal people, normal patients that are dying, because they're stoic, and you got to get to the core of that. And we have a saying in hospice: the goal for hospice patients is to have a quality or a good death, and there's only one person who can define that, and that's the patient. So if I can help veterans get through PTSD or get through any issues they may have or have come up with a confession. A lot of people go through things they've done in the military they've never told anybody, and they got to get that off their chest. That's what we have chaplains for, social workers, and we got to teach our staff how to talk to veterans to get them to feel comfortable with a veteran, because once a veteran who is in an issue or in a problem opens up to them, they got to know how to respond to them, and that's the goal.
Okay. How did your wartime experience affect your life, looking back, if it did?
Oh, I think it did. One, I'm very driven to get a job done. You know, mission is one. You give me something to do and I'll complete it. I get to a point where I can't go any farther, then what do we do with it then? So I will get things done. Sometimes they say I proceed and ask forgiveness later because I want to get it done. Because you know what needs to be done and you're not afraid to complete that mission. And sometimes you got to be careful talking to your leadership because you know what needs to be done. And sometimes you can't do it because of financial restrictions, or there may be something blocking politically in the atmosphere that you can't complete the mission. But I usually find a way around it by doing something different, make it less political, and move forward with it. And the other thing is sometimes if I rely on someone to get something done, another person, I expect it to be done, like they expect me to get it done. And if they don't get it done, then I lose faith in them pretty quickly.
Okay. What are some life lessons that you learned from military service?
Life lessons. I think family first. Family's always been first because you rely on your family, especially in the service. If your spouse or your children or your moms or dads, mail call, come on. Mail call is the #1 thing. So they get you through everything. So as a young 20-year-old kid, you're still your mom and dad, your parents, your sisters and brothers, but you look forward to those letters, and they mean something when you get those letters. So I think I appreciated my family more, and even today, we're very close. And I think honesty and just integrity. You're out there. If you cheat, it's going to fail. There's a success is it comes in small bits and pieces. This, you don't win the war. You win a couple of battles here and there, and you eventually win the war. So you just got to focus on what you can do, and do it well, and that's all you can do.
How has your military service benefited your career?
Well,
like afterwards?
Yeah, well, I think especially with this program I have now, it gives you credibility. You served in the military, you know what you're talking to. I talk to other veteran organizations. Obviously, I always tell them I'm a veteran, Vietnam era, 70, 71 in Vietnam. It gives you credibility, and you can bring people together, and it makes it a whole lot better compared if you're not a veteran. Veterans trust one another. I mean, to a point, they trust because we're brothers in arms, we're sisters in arms. But that's the door, and then the rest is how you produce and trust one another. So, and I think, again, it's you work on those small battles to win the war or to accomplish the mission, and then you just be honest with one another.
Did your military, going to Vietnam experience change how you feel about the military now? Did it affect you in any way?
Well, at first I was a little jealous. These guys got it made, ladies got it made. But again, I'm thinking, that's great. God bless, finally, you're being recognized. And we turned the page on that. So I'm proud. It's just great to see people in the military. I love to sit down and talk with guys. And, it's funny, being a Vietnam vet, you talk to someone who was in Afghanistan, you shake their hand, they say, I served in Vietnam. Oh, you served in Vietnam. Thank you. You led the way. Just good people, good people. So, no, I'm proud of everybody that serves. Yeah, it's a real honor to shake today's soldier.
Is there anything you feel we haven't discussed that you would like to talk about?
The only thing that really bugs me, I think, maybe that bugs me to talk about, is that, when I was, and the reason I know these statistics is because it's my job, what I do. There were, 12 million men and women served in World War II era. They didn't go to combat, but 12 million. Korea, there was 7 million. In Vietnam, 8 million that served, and today we have 1 million. It's a different war. It's a different philosophy, and of course, technology is different. A lot of things are different. They don't need as many men and women on boots on the ground, but still, 1 million out of how many million men and women in the United States? So, and I heard the other day that for the first time, the Army didn't meet their recruiting numbers. So what is going to happen if we don't have a solid military, to support our philosophies and our Constitution and those type of things? So it's pretty scary when people they don't want to serve. And I think that's what bothers me the most right now.
Okay. We'll have to see what we can do to change that in the future.
I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is. But it's scary.
What message would you leave for future generations who will hear or see this interview? Join the service. It can be scary. It's an adventure. It's a growing experience. You meet a lot of great people. You learn a lot. You get your head on straight. But it's something I think everybody should either join or support. You just got to remember, guys and ladies who join the military are good people, and they believe in what we believe in, and we want to make it safe that we can do and be here as a country for the rest of our lives. So I think it's just, vote, do those things you got to do, but we need a strong military. We really do, because if we don't, then we're in deep trouble. Because everybody comes to us for help, and nobody, we don't ask for help. We don't need to. We have to defend democracy.
We got to defend democracy. Okay. Yeah.
Well, this concludes the interview with Carl Gill at Wright State University. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. My pleasure.